you using your feminine energy responsibly? Hello everyone, I'm Sarah from Everyday Starlet. Welcome to my channel. I make videos to inspire you to be the star of your own life. I want to expand on a topic that I talked about in a previous video. It was actually my men looking versus leering video where I got into this whole idea of men checking out women in the gym and calling men out for that stuff. And I mentioned in the video the role that a woman plays in taking responsibility for connecting to her feminine energy and particularly her feminine sexuality. I got a lot of questions on that topic and I thought I would make a whole video diving into that topic a little bit deeper. So in this video, I'm primarily going to talk about a woman's responsibility that comes along with tapping into her feminine energy, particularly her feminine sexuality. None of what I'm going to say is to justify men being lecherous or leering at women, and I dive into that whole topic much deeper in the original video, so I highly recommend you check that out. I'm not taking off any responsibility that men have as to like not be creeps, basically. I just want to talk about the woman's role in how to handle her sexuality and her feminine energy responsibly. So the point that I made that actually I think like stirred up like a lot of conversation about this on social media was that when a woman connects to her feminine energy, particularly her sexuality, she has a responsibility to use that sexuality in a way that is going to bring more love to the world and is not going to hurt or abuse someone in that way. In the same way that when men tap into their masculine energy, they're going to need to have a certain capacity for violence. However, he has a responsibility to know when using that capacity for violence is a gift to the world. In a sense, he's using it to protect. He's using it to make sure that bad people are not hurting good people. He uses it to protect people who are more vulnerable. And he's not using that capacity for violence in ways that serve his own ego, in ways that are harmful to people, abuse people, take advantage of people, manipulate people, things like that. That's an important distinction that the masculine has to make. When a woman connects to her feminine energy, and one of the biggest aspects to a woman's feminine energy is to be able to connect to her sexuality. It's really important for women to know when tapping into that sexual energy and that sexuality is actually a gift to the world and bringing something better and greater into the world, cultivating more love, and when it is being used to hurt, abuse, manipulate other people, herself, something like that. So I got a lot of questions about this topic and I wanted to dive into this a little bit deeper. So somebody had commented about the idea that it is about women having self-control and discipline. To be totally honest with you, I don't love thinking about it like that. If that works for you, fine. I don't really like thinking about it like that because when I hear words like self-control and discipline, first of all, I'm like, ick. I don't like, I think most women have too much of that in their life right now. I also think that that's really more of a masculine mindset. It's more of a masculine mentality. Let the men, let the masculine have their discipline, let the masculine have their self-control. I like to think of it in terms of feminine energy and tapping into your feminine energy as, does it open or does it contract? Is how I'm about to use my sexuality, my sensuality, my feminine energy, like, is that opening or is that contracting? Is that constricting? So say you put on an outfit that's very sexy and you're either gonna go out in the town or you're gonna take a selfie of yourself or something, right? If you put on this outfit, you feel unbelievably vibrant. Like, you feel like you're glowing, you feel sensual, you feel sexual, you just feel so good within yourself. Like, you're looking at yourself and you're like, wow, I feel amazing. I feel radiant. Like, this is how I feel like I want to look and express myself in the world. And you know that going out in the world like that, you're going to glow. You're going to be smiling at people. You know that that energy is going to inspire other people to feel good, because people who feel good inspire other people to feel good. Either go out into the world or take a picture of yourself and you're going to post it online, and you know that it's going to inspire other people to see how great you feel, and they're going to be like, hey, you know what, maybe I could do something that would make me feel good too. And you know you're going to bring that goodness, that beauty, that radiance to the world. Do it. You know, I mean, it's like, we only have one life. We only have one life while we're here. We should enjoy it while we're here, right? That's the attitude that you want to walk out in the world and you want to feel your best in whatever way that is, go for it. However, if say you put on a sexy outfit, you know, and you're either going to go out someplace, or you're going to go someplace, or you're going to snap a picture of yourself or something. Some way you're gonna put this look out into the world. But you put it on because you're like, oh, my ex is gonna see me and he's gonna be checking me out. He's not gonna be paying attention to his new girl. Or you're like, my married coworker is gonna be checking me out and I've had my eye on him for a while. Or you're like, my boss is definitely gonna give me a raise when he sees me in this, right? Like that kind of thing. See how that's constrictive? That's not opening to the world. That's literally trying to use it in a way of, that's trying to like lure a man away from another woman, or that's, you know, trying to get revenge or trying to get something for yourself, as opposed to showing up in the world and just like feeling radiant and feeling beautiful. And at the end of the day, that beauty, that radiance, that sensuality that you are embodying within you, is it possibly going to have any of those other outcomes? Is it possibly going to make your boss decide to give you a raise? Is it possibly going to attract attention from somebody else? It might. You can't control what everybody else is doing. However, if you are doing something deliberately to try to hurt somebody else, abuse somebody else, get revenge, get something for your own ego needs or something, as opposed to you just saying, I want to embody the person I'm meant to be right now, and I want to share that glow, that radiance with the world. They're two different things. Can you feel that energy? Can you feel that one is very expansive and one is very contractive? That's what I want people to start thinking about. And that's just one example. And obviously when I'm talking about like dressing up in a certain way or a certain outfit, there's factors you want to factor in. And like, for example, if you know you're going to be going to a work function and you know that dressing really sexy is just not appropriate for the situation, even if you put on an outfit where you feel great that might be more sexy, it's knowing like, okay, but you know what, like this isn't going to serve the moment in this situation. I do feel great, beautiful, glowing, but like maybe this like work event is not the time for me to be showing up in my glowing sensuality. Maybe that's not really a gift to that moment. Maybe being in a room full of married men who, you know, could be distracted by what I'm wearing. And to a certain extent, we don't have full control over men, whether or not they're distracted, and I go into this more in the original video, so I'm not talking about us needing to control men's behavior. However, as women, we know if we wear an outfit that's meant for the club to a work setting, and that's going to be distracting to people because it's not appropriate for the moment, we can control that about ourselves. Now, if you show up looking very professional and you just happen to be an attractive woman and men get too distracted by that, that's on them. It's not your responsibility to try to be somebody that you're not, to not distract men. That said, if you show up to an event deliberately doing something that you know is going to be a distraction, that's not a gift to the world, right? Like that's you intentionally showing up someplace being like, yep, I knew wearing this outfit was going to distract all the men. It was going to give me all the attention. And I do realize that it's a fine line there, because what one person thinks is acceptable may not be what another person thinks is acceptable. You got to use your own judgment. And I'm not telling women that they have to be covered up, because when we start getting into, I mean, we've seen this happen in other countries. We start getting into like a woman can literally just show her eyeballs and that's it. We get into dangerous ground here, and I don't want to start going down that road. However, as women, we to some extent know when something is appropriate for the occasion and when it's not. And if you show up in something that is appropriate in that moment, if it still distracts men, then that's their issue. This isn't just about clothing. I'm just sort of focused on this sort of surface level right now, but it goes deeper than that, right? With the outfits, with the clothing, with how you express yourself physically, it's knowing when is the appropriate time to let that radiance shine and when is that time to maybe just not open up yourself fully. In the same way that even a woman who is in her most feminine, like she's the most feminine core being ever, if she's gonna walk to her car in a bad neighborhood, I mean, I certainly wouldn't advise her to be fully in her feminine energy, swaying her hips and you know, just, you know, going with the flow and listening to the sounds. And no, I would advise her to be in her masculine direction of like, okay, you need to get from point A to point B, you need to be focused, you probably want to have a bit of a shield up, because, you know, that's what's appropriate for that occasion. Whereas, you know, if you are, say, on a girls trip on the beach and you're just with a bunch of girls that are, you know, just with a bunch of feminine beings hanging out on the beach and just relaxing and soaking in the sun and just sort of being in your joy and your pleasure and, you know, a community of women and things like that, like that's when that full feminine expression feels like it is a gift to the moment. It's a bunch of feminine women expressing their feminine energy together in you know, which is incredibly powerful, and, you know, fully in your, you know, sort of like the sensual energy and the sensuality of the experience in the moment, like, or you're with your partner, you're with someone who you love, who you truly trust, and you can actually express that full feminine expression, as opposed to, you know, maybe with someone who you've just met, who you don't really know very well yet, you don't really know if you can trust yet. And I'm not saying that you should shut down your feminine energy, but like your full radiant feminine expression, maybe they just don't deserve that yet, right? That's where it's important as a woman to know when fully expressing that is really a gift and when it's not. Because I understand if you're somebody as a woman who has been suppressing your feminine energy, particularly your sexuality, because even though, yes, we have a world, we have a lot of women who are very promiscuous, we have a world of women who are making a lot of money online as OnlyFans girls, as Instagram models. We have a lot of women who are openly expressing their sexuality today, more than we ever have in history. There's still a vast majority of women that are completely shut off from their sexuality. And I will tell you right now, I'm willing to bet a lot of these girls that are using their sexuality to make money, and a lot of these girls who are, I mean, even the ones who are doing porn, or the ones who are just, you know, doing the modeling and things like that, a lot of them are not fully tapped into their sexuality either. I can tell you, I spent like 3 years as an Instagram lingerie model, and I was not tapped into my sexuality in that time at all. I was totally shut off from it. So I'm sure that some of these other girls are shut off from it too. Even if they're actively having sex, a lot of them are not tapped into that. This is the thing that really gets missed in our society a lot, is that, I think I mentioned this in my Sex and Society video, the percentage of women that are actually having orgasms from one night stands is like 14%. Not a very big number. So, because women in general, this is where we get into a big misconception, women in general are actually much more sexual than men are. Most men are addicted to ejaculation. Women have such a deep, intense capacity for orgasmic experiences. However, most women who are having one-night stands don't ever get a chance to tap into that fully, because it takes more than just a superficial meeting with someone and a hookup in order for most women to be able to tap into the fullness of their sexuality. So if as a woman you are settling for these quick hookups, you're actually doing yourself a disservice, as well as the world, because a woman who is orgasmically satisfied, you can look into the work of Kim Anami. I highly recommend her work. She's amazing. I've done several of her courses, and she talks a lot about the female orgasm, the woman's capacity for orgasmic experiences. All that stuff is amazing. But a woman who's fully embodied in her sexuality and her orgasmic experiences really does bring so much to the world, so much beauty to the world, so much just radiant sensuality, just everything to the world. Even if she's not having sex with everybody, which in most cases, a woman who's just having sex with everybody is probably not actually embodying her full sexuality, because they're just going to be superficial sexual experiences. It's a beautiful thing that women can bring to the world. However, if they're just settling for these very shallow, superficial, casual sexual experiences, and I don't believe sex is ever actually casual, but if they're just settling for that, they're not tapping into that full orgasmic experience, they're selling themselves short, and they're really selling everybody short in that situation. As well as so many men today are addicted to superficial ejaculation. Porn culture is a huge part of it. Some of it's evolutionary, absolutely. It's reinforced with porn culture and the fact that everything nowadays is somehow pornographic. I talked about this in my Sex and Sexuality video as well. As women, if we contribute to this addiction that men have to superficial ejaculation, and again, their addictions are their responsibility. That said, you know, it's like if you know people are alcoholics and you keep pushing alcohol in front of them, yes, it's their responsibility to not drink. It's their responsibility to keep their addictions under control, absolutely. However, is it really a loving gift to the world to constantly be pushing a person's addiction in front of them? I would say probably not. Now, again, this is where it gets into a fine line here, because it's not our responsibility to walk around, again, with only our eyeballs showing, because we don't want to possibly enact a man's urge to need to ejaculate or something. However, if as a woman, if you are constantly just throwing your sexuality out there at people because you have a neediness for men to want you, because a lot of women get addicted to that need for superficial attention. And in the same way that for men, a lot of times that superficial need to ejaculate is their distraction from other things. Most men do it as a distraction for not finding their true purpose in life. For women, oftentimes we will use that superficial attention, like that addiction to superficial attention, to distract us from the fact that what we truly long for is to be fully seen by a trusted masculine partner. But if we're either afraid to be fully seen, or we don't trust a masculine partner, we don't trust men, or we're craving something that we just don't have, we can get addicted to the superficial hit of attention that we get from men. But it's never truly going to satisfy us, because what we actually want is something much deeper. In the same way that when men get addicted to their need to ejaculate, it's very often their way of distracting themselves from finding their greater purpose. It can also be a distraction for them as to actually connecting to someone intimately as well. You know, these things, again, these like superficial addictions that we have are really just a distraction from us actually going and finding the thing that we truly want within us. Like it's actually keeping us at a superficial level, so we never get to our depth. I go into this much deeper in my Sex and Society video, where I talk more about the dangers of promiscuity and things like that. However, one of the things I want to mention is what I kind of like to call the Samantha Jones Syndrome. It's women who are very promiscuous as a way of actually pushing men away. I have a breakdown of Sex and the City, and I talk about this there, but I know a lot of people put Samantha Jones up on this pedestal as like the epitome of the woman's sexual liberation, the epitome of feminine lover energy. I actually don't find Samantha to be very feminine at all, and I don't see Samantha as actually being sexually liberated. What I see Samantha as a woman who, in the same way as men often do, uses shallow, superficial sexual experiences to distract her. Like, you see this several times in the series Sex and the City if you've watched it, when Samantha doesn't want to feel something, or doesn't want to feel an emotion, or doesn't want to admit something to herself, she goes to a man for sex. It's a way to distract her, which is something that men do a lot. It's very common in men, but women do it as well. It's also, too, what I kind of think of as the Samantha Jones Syndrome is the woman who is like, I'm gonna use a man for sex before he uses me. It's one of those things where it's like, you can't fire me, I quit, like that kind of thing. It's like, if a woman gets into the mentality that she's going to use a man for sex, but you can't really use a man for sex. Can we just be real? Like, you can't, because you're literally just using him by giving him exactly what he wants. It doesn't work that way. I think oftentimes women get into this idea of, if they can convince themselves that they're using a man for sex, then it kind of puts their wall up, so she doesn't actually fully open to him because she's guarded. And so that's where I think we get this false idea that if you have sex with somebody that you're automatically opening to them. You can have sex with somebody and energetically be very guarded, and I think that that's what happens a lot. So I'm not here to tell anybody like when they should have sex, who they should have sex with, or anything like that. However, when we're talking about a woman's responsibility when she connects to her sexuality, oftentimes, especially if a woman has been very suppressed, she can shift the other way and be like, all right, I'm just gonna be promiscuous and hook up with anybody. You as a woman can connect to your feminine sexuality and not actually have to have sex with a bunch of guys. I would actually argue that it's actually very beneficial for you to really tap into your sexuality on your own, whether you're in a relationship or not. To tap into that on your own so that you are more familiar with your body, with your turn-ons, with your own sexual energy, so that you can then bring that to a partner, whether you're in a relationship or to a future partner or something like that. And I've said this in other videos, I really do believe that if more women actually owned their own worth, like owned the beautiful power and sacredness of their feminine bodies and of their feminine energy, they would be a lot more particular about who they share their bodies with. Like, women would not be promiscuous because we would hold our bodies in such high regard that there would be so few men in the world that would actually be deemed worthy of access to our bodies that we wouldn't have promiscuous women, to be totally honest with you. But as women, when you do feel like your sexuality has maybe been suppressed over time, or maybe you've been used or taken advantage of, it can be tempting for some women to just run off and start sleeping with everybody, or run off and start just like hitting people over the head with your sexuality and stuff. And it's important to check in with yourself again and say, okay, is this expansive or is this contractive? Does this feel like a gift to the world? Does this feel good for me? Does it feel sacred for me? Does this feel like something that is a gift to the world? I remember seeing this heartbreaking video of this girl who was an OnlyFans girl and was basically just, you know, she hated men, that men were disgusting, she just despised men, and she was just using them for their money, and she did not want any of these men to ever see her on the street or talk to her or anything. And a lot of men were pretty upset with her for saying this, but like oh my god, I felt so much pain in her voice. Like I felt so much pain in her heart. Like it hurt me so much. I mean, obviously she's in this world, she's put herself in this position, literally in this position, to be in a world of men who are probably using and exploiting her. She probably had a lot of judgments about how men were and how men were treating her from her past. That's probably how she put herself in this situation. And she's continuously putting herself in situations where men are using her for her sexuality. And I'm sure that that comes from pain and trauma from her past that my heart just hopes that she someday heals. It's abusive to herself to continuously put herself in a situation where she's constantly around men who are going to essentially be the type of man that she doesn't trust and that she can't rely on, and the type of man that she is obviously very uncomfortable with. But that said, she's also, her hatred of men and her distrust of men is putting her in a situation where she wants to use these men for everything she can get from them. It's a way of, she's abusing herself and she's abusing them in a way, because and yes, it is a business exchange. They're both showing up, they're both, you know, they're all adults, they know what they're exchanging as far as money and sexuality and things like that. However, it's not coming from a place of a straight up business deal. It's coming from a place of, she hates men so much she wants to try to get whatever she can from them by using her sexuality almost as a weapon. And I think that, again, I'm not telling women how much skin they should show or like what their expression of their sexuality should look like, because I think everybody needs to decide for themselves what that is. But that said, if you find yourself going out into the world and wanting to use your sexuality as a weapon to hurt someone, even if you're getting money for it, or even if it becomes an even exchange, or if you think that this is a, you know, the more that I've dove into porn culture and the dangers of it, and a lot of women who were in that world, who have come out of that world, and the things that they're sharing about their experiences and stuff, like, it breaks my heart that there are so many women who are in this situation where they're exploiting themselves. And a lot of them, I think it comes from pain and trauma. But unfortunately, as a woman, if you are using this sexuality as a way to try to abuse men, or like I said before, if you're trying to like lure your ex back to you, or lure a man away from his wife or something like that, like, that's not using your feminine energy, your feminine sexuality in a way that's a gift to the world. It's using it in a way to be manipulative for your own needs and wants. And if you are doing that, I would highly suggest that you ask yourself why, like where that comes from, like where that pattern comes from, and work on healing that part of yourself, because that's not your true feminine energy. That's not your true feminine expression. So I was asked a lot for examples, and I think I've given a lot of examples here about, you know, dressing, which is a little bit more superficial, the concept of promiscuity, and like knowing where you want to share your body and share your feminine sexuality with, and like being more selective with, you know, how you share that with the world. In relationship, like if you are in a relationship with a partner who you love and who you trust, there are ways when you can use your sexuality to cultivate more love in the relationship, and there's ways that when you can do it to manipulate and things like that. I think one of the most beautiful things that, if you have a polarized masculine feminine dynamic, one of the most beautiful gifts that the feminine can bring to the masculine, she's the oracle. So she uses her feminine intuition. As a woman, when you are truly connected, your heart is connected with a masculine partner, you can very often tune into what it is that he needs in that moment. And you can bring the feminine energy, like which flavor of the feminine energy, because we all have all of them within us. You can bring that flavor of feminine energy to the relationship. I actually have a video talking about the flavors of feminine energy. So if your masculine partner, say for example, is, you know, he's like in his purpose, but you feel him getting weary, like you feel him getting exhausted, he's not as productive, he's, you know, he's like not his vibrant self. If you tap into your heart and you're like, you know what he could use right now? He could use some good loving. Then tapping into maybe that siren energy, maybe that seductress energy, where you can actually kind of like lure him away from his work for a little while, and you two can have your sexy time, sensuality, like that kind of thing. And then you now have invigorated him so he can go back to his purpose and with like a renewed energy, right? That's a beautiful gift to him. And none of this is about like, if you yourself are not open, like it's not about overriding your own natural intuition as to whether your body is open or whether your body isn't. Like, you don't have to force yourself to have sex with him. It's about tapping into your natural sexuality and knowing like, okay, in this moment right now, my sexuality is a gift to him. It's gonna be a beautiful gift to both of us. Like, we're gonna be able to spend some time, cultivate love in the relationship. It's gonna invigorate him to go back to his purpose, and we're gonna have had a beautiful intimacy together. And like, it's a gift to both of you, to the world, to the relationship. It's cultivating sexual energy between the two of you. It's a wonderful gift to the relationship. However, if say your masculine partner he's deep in his purpose, like he is deep in his purpose and he's on a roll. You can tell he is just like in the zone, he's in the moment, and you're feeling like, oh, I miss him. I'm not getting enough attention. I wish he'd pay attention to me. And you start trying to seduce him away from his purpose, when you know that that's not really a gift to him in that moment. That's your own neediness. And you're allowed to have needs for sure. But if you ask yourself, like, in that moment, is me trying to get his attention right now the best gift for him? Or is me trying to get his attention right now only serving my needs and it's not serving both of us? You might want to ask yourself that. That's not to say that you can't have needs in a relationship, and if you do feel like your partner has been neglecting you, again, if he's like deep in the zone right then and he's focused on his purpose, you have to ask yourself, like, is getting his attention away the best gift in that moment? Now, when he's done with what he's doing and you two have a moment together, that could be a moment for an actual conversation about time management and things like that. However, if when he is done with his purpose and you feel like you need him and he's like, I'm exhausted, I'm done with my purpose, but you feel like, you know what, some good loving right now might be good for us, then maybe tapping into that might be good. Or maybe just your nurturing energy, or maybe bringing him, you know, a different energy that you feel like might be healing for him in that moment. As the feminine, and part of tapping into feminine energy in a relationship is being able to bring to the masculine the feminine energy that would best serve both of you in that moment, that would best serve love and would best serve the relationship. That's another aspect to it too, and there's tons of other examples of this. What I really want women to do is to understand that when you do tap into that sexuality, it's really important to ask yourself, am I bringing this as a gift to the world, to my partner, to, you know, anybody involved in this situation? Or am I using this to hurt someone? Or am I deliberately going into the situation knowing that this is a destructive thing? Obviously, we don't know everything and we can't control anyone but ourselves. Are we intentionally using our sexuality in order to hurt someone? Or are we intentionally using our sexuality to bring more love to the world, as a gift to the world? That's where I want people to start discerning between, because I think very often, especially with our world today with sexual liberation and stuff, we get into this idea that as a woman, any expression of sexuality is just what the world is gonna have to deal with. And if you're going into anything, sexuality, anything, and you're just like, this is who I am, you have to deal with it from like that angry place, you can ask yourself, like, okay, is this really what I think is the best? Or am I being told that being promiscuous, am I being told that, you know, throwing my sexuality in people's faces, am I being told that that's what I'm supposed to do? Or does that really feel right to me in the moment? Like, does this feel like a gift? Does this feel open? Does this feel expansive? Or does this feel like I'm doing this out of pain, trauma, neediness, something like that? As much as tapping into your feminine sexuality is incredibly important to tapping into your feminine energy. And when I say that, I don't mean it means you have to be promiscuous, you don't have to fool around with a bunch of people, you don't have to even be having sex all the time, because I think feminine sexuality is more than just plain, you know, what we think of as sex. Like, it involves a lot of other things. It's sensuality, it's creativity. There's so many aspects to feminine sexuality that are not just plain like two people having sex. When you start tapping into that, you start tapping into cultivating that sexual energy within you. A bigger part of tapping into your feminine energy, I would say, is being connected to your feminine intuition to know, like, okay, when is expressing that sexuality a gift to the world and when it's expressing that sexuality actually either for my own selfish ego needs, or is it for some kind of manipulation or to hurt someone or to hurt myself in some way, and tapping into that and being like, okay, does this feel good? Does this feel juicy, alive? You know, does this feel like this is a beautiful gift to the world, to my partner, to myself? Or does this feel like, ooh, this is a trigger, this is a trauma, this is an old wound, this is a way that I am abusing somebody else, this is a way I'm abusing myself? And it's gonna take time, especially if you're someone who's been cut off from your feminine energy for a long time. This takes time. Be patient with yourself. In reality, for most women who are feminine at their core, this is not about pretending to be somebody else. Always remember that. This is about connecting back to who you truly are as a person and getting rid of all the stuff that the world has told you that you have to be in order to be a feminine being. You are a feminine being at your core. It's your birthright. You gotta shed all that other stuff that people are telling you about what that means and tap into yourself. It's important to know if what it is that you are doing to express that feminine energy and sensuality is expansive or contractive. Does it cultivate more love, or is it actually coming from a place of hate or trauma or wounding or abuse of some kind? Only you know the answer to that. Like, only you know where that line is. But it's important to tap into that for yourself. Be patient with yourself. And most of us in the past have done things that have probably not been from the best place, that have probably not been from love, that have been from our traumas or triggers. Maybe that have either been abusive to somebody else or abusive to ourselves. Again, all we can do is learn from our past and hopefully not keep repeating the patterns that we've done in our past. But it's important to forgive yourself for your past, because you probably were just being the person that you felt like you needed to be in that moment. Again, none of this is about shaming people who, you know, post sexy selfies or are on OnlyFans or, you know, are sleeping around or anything like that. You know, consenting adults can choose to do what they want. I would just ask you to make sure that you're tuning into your own intuition and figure out, okay, am I doing this because it's a gift to the world? Am I doing this because this is something that is actually cultivating love and positivity in my life? Or am I doing this out of anger, bitterness, frustration, trauma, trigger, abuse, self-abuse, anything like that? Because you deserve to be in your feminine energy and cultivating more love. Even if that's your anger, even if that's maybe the messy, dark parts of yourself. Dark feminine energy also involves that kind of like real sexy seductress energy, and that part of you can be beautiful. There's times when that, like I mentioned before with your partner, there's times when that, like, you know, seductress energy, there's times when, you know, in the right situation with, you know, with the right partner, when tapping into like your sacred slut or like that primal sexual part of you is absolutely a beautiful gift to the world. And it's not about being a prude or being shut off or anything like that. Those parts of you can be beautiful. It's knowing when is the right time to tap into that part of yourself. And when you're with a partner, if you are with a partner, and I mean, if you're out in the world, knowing when it's appropriate to tap into that part of you in the world, and also knowing when is the right part to tap into when you're with a partner. And if you're with a partner who is a safe partner to tap into that part of yourself with, if they're a partner who's actually worthy of that part of you, if bringing that part of you to that relationship in that moment is a gift to that moment, or whether it's actually not a gift to that moment. And be patient with yourself. You know, it's not about shaming you or having a good girl, bad girl mentality, because honestly, I think most women, we have a good girl, we have a sweet, innocent maiden, we have the nurturing mother, we have the regal queen, but we also have that like sacred slut in us. We have that like angry, you know, feminine rage. We have the, you know, the wild storm. We have the wild woman in the dirt and everything. And I think that as women, cultivating all of those things is beautiful. It's just knowing when we're bringing those things to the world from a loving place and when it's actually a gift to the world and it's not, you know, it's not actually harmful to the world and to people and to ourselves. So yeah, I hope that answered some of the questions on that topic. Again, none of this takes the responsibility away from men and the masculine. I talked about that much more in the original video where I kind of got the idea for this topic. So highly recommend you check that out. This is really just about the feminine role in connecting to her sexuality and expressing that to the world. So if you enjoyed this video and found it helpful, please give it a big thumbs up and be sure you subscribe to my channel. If you have any thoughts on this topic, always open to discussions, provided they are respectful discussions. You can disagree with me, I just ask that you be respectful. If you're a feminine woman and want to connect to her feminine energy, I have online courses, details in the description box below, along with links to all my social media accounts. Thank you guys so much for watching, and I hope you join me next time.